I just wanted to give you a quick reminder. The media in this country do not decide who the winner of the election is. That is the role of the Electoral College. And as of today, not only has Joe Biden not been certified as the winner of any single state, but if you look at the actual facts, President Donald Trump still has a clear path to victory. This is your 2020 election update, and I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. I was speaking with my editor earlier today, and to be frank with you, because I have to read all of these media reports every single day, I was getting a little bit frustrated because I was trying to figure out how and why the legacy media outlets are reporting the way that they are, and how they're calling this election, even though it's obviously still in the air, and how they are wholesale ignoring evidence of, let's call it voter irregularities, just to avoid the YouTube censorship. But what he told me actually calmed me down quite a bit, because he said that any reasonable person, any person who's viewing this thing objectively, who's looking at the election right now, knows that it's not decided yet. Based on the math, the election is still very much in play. He also recommended to me that I should not focus on the narratives that are being pushed by the legacy media. And so for this video, let's do this. Let's ignore what the legacy media are saying, and let's instead look at the actual numbers across this country. The most clear path to victory that President Trump still has is through Arizona, Alaska, North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. Now, Alaska and North Carolina are still counting their votes, but both of them, with their combined 18 electoral votes, are looking like they're going to go to President Trump. Georgia's election is unbelievably close, with a razor-thin margin of just 12,000 votes, and a recount is underway. So if that recount yields just a 0.25% change, that could flip Georgia over to President Trump, which would be another 16 electoral votes. Now, Arizona is also coming right down to the wire. The latest batch of votes that were counted there brought President Trump to within 15,000 votes of Joe Biden's lead. That's just a 0.5% difference. And there are still approximately 70 to 80,000 votes that still need to be counted. So Arizona is still very, very much in play. And that's, by the way, not even mentioning a lawsuit that was recently filed in Arizona alleging that improper actions of poll workers invalidated the ballots of people who voted in person. Now, Pennsylvania is the state that I really want us to focus on today. The margins there are also incredibly slim, with Joe Biden just being 46,000 votes ahead of President Trump, which is something like only 0.7% of the vote. Now, yesterday, the Trump campaign filed a lawsuit in Pennsylvania, and this lawsuit alleged that their election process violated the Constitution by creating basically a two-tiered voting system, with one set of rules and standards for people that vote in person, and another standard and another totally different set of rules with a much lower standard for both verification and transparency for ballots that were mailed in. And by the way, in Pennsylvania, the number of ballots that were mailed in is giant. 2.6 out of the approximately 6.75 million votes came via mail. This is how the lawsuit spelled it out. For voters that actually came to the polls, they were required to sign voter registrations, have those signatures checked against voter rolls. They were voting in a place that was monitored by authorized poll observers, and they had their votes counted in a transparent and verifiable, open and observed manner. Now, by contrast, the lawsuit alleges that the over 2 million mail-in votes lacked all of these transparent and verifiable qualities. It says that, for one, the Pennsylvania Secretary of State refused to require adequate verification of the voter's identity, meaning that the mail-in ballot signatures were not checked against the database. Two, rather than require that all votes had to be received on the day of the election, the Secretary of State allowed ballots to be counted even if they were received up to 3 days after the election, without requiring any evidence that was actually mailed in on time, such as a postmark with a date on it. And thirdly, unlike the in-person voting that was open and transparent to both parties, the lawsuit alleges that mail-in ballots were reviewed and counted largely in secret, with no monitoring and little to no meaningful access to the Republicans. And in fact, I read a report that one poll observer was kept so far away from the ballots that he literally had to use binoculars to see what was happening. And again, with a difference of only 46,000 votes between Joe Biden and President Trump in Pennsylvania, any lawsuits like this, any audits, any recounts, or the invalidation of any ballots that weren't handled properly can swing this election in a single heartbeat. And this, let's call it voter irregularity, just to avoid the YouTube censorship, is not being investigated only in Pennsylvania. Yesterday, Attorney General William Barr sent a memo to the Justice Department authorizing the prosecutors there to, quote, pursue substantial allegations of voting and vote tabulation irregularities prior to the certification of elections in your jurisdictions in certain cases. He added that such probes could only be conducted in the presence of, quote, clear and apparent, credible allegations of irregularities that, if true, could potentially impact the outcome of federal election in an individual state, end quote. Now, William Barr was called out as getting political for publishing this directive by both Democrats and the media. But the question to me is this: If you're the Justice Department, why wouldn't you pursue credible allegations of voter fraud and irregularities? In fact, in my opinion, it would be weird not to. But regardless, this is exactly why when you look at the real numbers, when you look at the reality on the ground from state to state, there is no clear winner yet. This election is very much still up in the air. And when this type of situation occurs in America, when there are razor-thin margins, when there are credible allegations of voter irregularities and voter fraud, we have a system in place for that. That's how this country works. The media does not decide elections. When there are disputes, the courts are there to resolve them. And until they do, we here at the Epoch Times will not be calling this election, and instead we will continue to report as honestly and accurately as possible so that you can know what is really happening in this country right now. And if you want to go deeper into all of this, we'll throw the links to the articles as well as to the lawsuit documents in the description box below this video. I would highly recommend reading them yourself, because in my opinion, what this republic needs more than anything else right now are informed citizens who are fully grounded in facts. So until next time, stay informed and stay free.